Okay, thanks, Nanette, for the introduction. Yes, today we're going to talk about our forthcoming publication in the Journal of Advertising Research, where we look at the implicit effects of sonic branding and specifically how you can use music to manipulate the perception of visual scenes. But first of all, let's have a quick look at how advertising really works. So on the surface, we have rational and product and pricing messages that are transported by advertising and marketing to the consumer and are thought to evoke short-term behavioral responses. For example, the consumer engages with a brand, goes into a shop, or buys a product. However, this traditional view of advertising and marketing has been challenged by the scientific discipline of behavioral economics, and in particular by Daniel Kahneman, one of its best well-known proponents, a psychologist and Nobel Prize laureate. So Kahneman said, actually, this system too that's on the surface of our processing system has underneath another system that he called System 1. And that is actually larger and probably more effective, at least in terms of persuasion, marketing, and advertising. So System 1 is engaged with emotional brand associations and leads to long-term brand preferences, so shapes our behavior in the future. And there's a host of cues and biases and heuristics that shape our behavior in System 2. And one of the most important cues and effective cues to shape our behavior can be music, as many empirical studies have demonstrated. So marketers can exploit this powerful effect of music by turning to the decades of research on film music research that has already shown the powerful effects of music. And here I'd like to give you a brief example of a short video clip. Let's watch at this, look at this. And now let's look at video clip number 2. So you saw the same video clip, only with 2 different soundtracks in the background. And as you saw, the music suggested completely different interpretations and readings of this visual scene. In the first clip, we saw 2 colored balls opposing each other, perhaps getting into a fight. It was definitely some sort of enemy type feeling going on. In the second clip, it was all the opposite. It was an affectionate behavior. Maybe the 2 colored dots were falling in love. Maybe they were grooming. Maybe this was preparing for a wedding, something like that. So very different interpretation. It's very hard to not fall into one of these interpretations when you watch this clip. So music and audio can have a substantial effect on consumer interpretations of a visual scene and on brands too, as many studies have shown. Now, if we believe that music has such powerful effects on visual interpretation and on our perception of brands, we need an objective test of the emotional effects of music. But how do we do that? Could we not just ask consumers what a piece of music expresses for them? And here we're at a point where David Ogilvy once summarized the problem with this type of research in a brilliant way. He said, "The trouble with research is that people don't do what they don't say what they think, and they don't think how they feel." So basically saying consumers don't have a very good insight into their own emotions and feelings, their own biases and heuristics they use when they make consumer decisions. And that exactly is the problem. And that leads us to the question of explicit versus implicit testing. So with an explicit test, we would ask someone something about the music. Please describe us what you feel and what this music expresses. We would engage their system too, their rational system. On the other hand, with an implicit test, we ask someone about the video and engage their system once. We don't ask them about the music, but only what the video expresses to them in an emotional way. So the key point is here that we can infer the effect of audio even when we're asking about the video. And this is actually the approach that we are taking to develop this new test. So the aim of this research study was to develop a new implicit test of emotional semantic effects of brand music without asking participants to engage with music consciously. We want this test to be scalable to large target consumer groups, and we want it to be quick and cost-effective. And at this point, I'll hand over to my colleague, Seb Silas.
Thank you, Daniel. So how are we going to do that? First of all, we're going to compile a database of semantically ambiguous video clips, meaning video clips that have a relatively good chance of being influenced by music. We're going to pair all these video clips with lots of different brand music, and then collect a data set of consumers rating the video content on an inventory of different emotional semantic attributes. It's important that we ask them to tell us about the video content. And these semantic attributes will be things like intense or peaceful. The next step, having such a large data set, is to use so-called generalizability theory and variance decomposition to try and establish what is the effect of the brand music itself aside from the video. So we need some clever statistics to help us determine the effect of the music, which is what we're interested in. So we derived a set of 14 videos. We paired them systematically with 148 brand anthems, giving us a full combinatoric space of just over 2,000 experimental conditions. And we asked consumers to rate these pairings on 14 different attributes. We had a data set of about 6,500 people, giving rise to about 60,000 responses in our data set. So then comes the next step of modeling this data and trying to establish the effect of audio alone aside from video. So we turn to G theory, generalizability theory. Using what is essentially a mixed effects model, we construct a model which tries to compartmentalize the variance attributable to a given attribute rating, a word like intense or bold, the video itself, and the audio itself, plus how these factors interact with one another. We model them all together. And then from that model, since we're only interested in the effect of the audio, we're going to predict what is the effect of the audio by itself. So if we look at the top graph, what we see is that the effect of the visual information really does dominate the variance in how people rate the scene that they are witnessing. And the audio does show a small effect. However, if we aggregate across videos and treat the video set as a whole test in itself, we can better see the effect of the audio, and it becomes comparable to the effect of videos. Next, we're interested in what attributes are easier to bias or influence with audio. And if we look at the top, that attribute intense has a much wider distribution, meaning it has much more variance in relation to audio. And at the bottom, we see simple has much narrower distribution, it doesn't vary so much as a result of the audio being applied to it. And this essentially suggests that some attributes such as intense or peaceful are easier to bias with music than simple. So if you want a scene to come across as simple, adding music to it is probably not going to help you very much. So more variability, easier to bias with audio, and thus easier to target in the context of branding. So to summarize everything that we discussed, as we've seen, music has a great potential to bias visual scenes and brands. And we've done this not only with videos, but also with images too. To test this effect of music, you need implicit testing. So you can't ask the consumer about the music itself. You need to ask them about the video and use a statistical methodology such as G-theory to determine the effect of audio otherwise. And we found, and it's described in the paper, that these results really differ from explicit testing, which is traditionally taken in consumer circles. And we also showed at the end there that certain branding attributes are easier to influence and bias with audio than others. Thank you very much for listening. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. I'd also like to thank our co-author, David John Baker, who was not speaking with us today, as well as the sonic branding company, SoundOut, for helping us conduct these quite ambitious experiments. And for more details, we refer you to the forthcoming paper coming out in the Journal of Advertising Research shortly. Thank you very much.